Imagine if we went back in time and gave an NFL team a cheat sheet for the draft, telling them exactly who the best players are in the position they are drafting for the first and second rounds, occasionally giving them a little nudge when it comes to free agency and who they shouldn't let go. What would those teams look like now if they were able to always play the draft perfectly? That's what I'm here to try and answer. Today we're looking at the Chargers, and oh boy is this a good one. I think this one is the first one to truly challenge the Browns one for the most dramatic overhaul. Now the Chargers, I personally think, have always been one of the most complete teams in the NFL, just had terrible luck with injury, but of course that would also play into a scenario like this, because if they draft perfectly, they would draft players that don't have injury problems. So let's get straight into this team. The offense actually doesn't look too different. The defense gets pretty crazy, especially in certain position groups. So the offensive line from left tackle through center is the same. So Dunlap, Franklin, Slauson, I think all of these guys, except for maybe obviously Slauson here, are criminally underrated on this game. But then we come to the right guard. With the 11th overall selection in 2013, the Chargers took DJ Fluker. Now technically they took him as a tackle, but they play him at guard. And the guy they could have had instead then, Kyle Long, the right tackle, unchanged as well. So it's finished off with Joe Barksdale, and that's the offensive line, the only change there. Kyle Long, he gets reunited with Matt Slauson. Move on to tight end, where nothing has changed. Hunter Henry and Antonio Gates. Then we move down to wide receiver, where actually, again, nothing has changed, but you just see how good they can be if everybody's on the field at the same time. Keenan Allen, Tyrell Williams, Dontrell Inman, not a bad group of 3 receivers right there. Then we move on to the running back, and this one could be changed. In 2015, 15th overall selection, the Chargers took Melvin Gordon at running back, and now the only player they really could have had instead was David Johnson, but Melvin Gordon here was the correct pick. There is no massive difference between Melvin Gordon, in his second year, and David Johnson. Can't say they made the wrong pick because someone slightly better was available. Melvin Gordon, great pick, solid pick, and that's actually it for any changes that could come here. So let's finish the offense. Phillip Rivers at quarterback, Derek Watt at fullback, and that's the offense. 2 changes, well, 2 potential changes, only 1 actual change. But, if these guys are all healthy all at the same time, that's quite an offense. So let's move on to the defense, and we start at free safety, and can you guess what I'm going to say here? Whatever the thinking behind pushing Eric Weddle out the door last season was, you should reverse that and keep him on the team because he's still one of the best free safeties in the NFL. Strong safety would be Jaleel Adai, and then we come on to the linebackers, and this is ridiculous, partly because they already have some decent linebackers, but more importantly, because they've drafted a lot of linebackers. So let's start at right outside linebacker, where in 2012 with the 18th overall pick, the Chargers selected Melvin Ingram. That was the correct pick. One other guy they could have had there, Whitney Merciless, of course wouldn't be bad, but I think Melvin Ingram, definitely the right pick. Maybe with health concerns you could argue Merciless over Ingram, but this was the right pick for them, and now we move on to a bunch of changes. And I don't even know where to begin, so we'll begin as far back as possible. In 2011, with the 61st pick, right at the end of the second round, the Chargers selected Jonas Mouton, outside linebacker. Now they were playing a 4-3 at the time, which would mean the best fit there would technically be if they would have taken KJ Wright. However, they play a 3-4 now, and that means Justin Houston could have been the best player they took at that position. Then in 2013, with the 38th pick, they took Manti Te'o at linebacker, inside linebacker. Jamie Collins would be a better selection there maybe for them. Then in 2014, with the 18th pick in the second round, the Chargers selected Jeremiah Otauchu, outside linebacker. They could have had Telvin Smith here at left outside linebacker, who just becomes surplus to requirements really, as in a 3-4. We'd obviously like to have Houston starting over him. And then one more pick in 2015, in the 48th pick, they took Denzel Perriman from Miami at linebacker, inside linebacker. They could have taken Jordan Hicks. Now I actually like Denzel Perriman. If maybe he'd always played 16 games both years he's been in the NFL, I could even argue it was a good pick. But Jordan Hicks, a better pick here. They could have also had Quan Alexander. And that is what the linebackers could have looked like for the Chargers. Let's move down because the changes don't stop here. Let's start with the cornerbacks. In 2011, with the 50th pick in the draft, the Chargers selected Marcus Gilchrist, and he came into the league as a cornerback. They switched into a safety, and it was only a matter of time before we got to this one, 2011. The best cornerback you could take, regardless of who you took pretty much in the first or second round. Richard Sherman, that would be the man there. You'd have Casey Hayward on the other side. Jason Verrett would then be a nickel guy. And then on top of that, you'd still have Brandon Flowers on the team. and that's a whole bunch of depth you'd want to see on the Chargers. I mean, when everybody's healthy, that's already pretty much one of the most ridiculous groups in the NFL. You add Richard Sherman into the mix, and it's historic. So the final group here, the defensive line. In 2011, with the 18th overall selection, the Chargers took Corey Liuget. Now this is the one where a bunch of times I think I've already said Jurrell Casey you could take instead, but I'd actually argue Corey Liuget was the correct selection. I really like Corey Liuget. I think he's incredibly destructive, incredibly undervalued, one of the best and most consistent players on that defense, but it's all kind of technically irrelevant because in 2012, with the 49th pick, the Chargers took Kendall Reyes in the same position, and that could have been Mike Daniels, and now I'd actually put Corey Liuget, Mike Daniels, Jurrell Casey all in one club together, but I think I'd rather start Mike Daniels here, maybe just, who knows. I mean, out of all three of those guys, Jurrell Casey's the only one getting any respect, and he only just started getting it. Mike Daniels still hasn't been to a Pro Bowl, neither has Corey Liuget. But let's move on. Left end, Defensive Rookie of the Year, Joey Bosa, and a defensive tackle, or rather nose tackle in this situation, Brandon Mebane. This team is stacked, and how stacked this team is, obviously, it brings up the point. Not only are we talking about a theoretical world here where we can travel back in time and give teams cheat sheets, we're also Major League Baseball here. There is no salary cap. There is no chance you could ever put this team together under the salary cap. You probably can't put any of the other teams together under the salary cap either, but especially this one. A bunch of huge names, a bunch of huge contracts, and this is ridiculous, especially the defense, the linebackers, the cornerbacks, the defensive line, the safeties. I mean, everything is good here. The offense already good anyway. We've got Kyle Long in at right guard. But I guess the only question when it comes to this team is, can this team actually avoid the injury curse even with different players? Because it seems to bite them every single year.